welcome to Faith, Family, and Politics. I'm your host, Joshua Cummins.
And today we're going to have a really big show today.
Yeah, we are. You know, Lou, it's episode 85.
Wow, 85.
Ocho de cinco, right?
I'll be flabbergasted when we hit 100.
And Alan's got to bring the message on that one. I'm looking forward to it.
Next show I don't come.
You know, I know that you're already subscribed and everything. Make sure that you're checking out Louis' show. He is the host of Rodriguez Rants. And we're going to probably record another episode here very soon, so we're going to keep them coming. So make sure that you're showing him some love. But yeah, and we know that you're already subscribed, that you're already following on Rumble and YouTube and Facebook, and you're even listening to us on audio for a second chance, you know, so you're double dipping. But we want you to also make sure that you're commenting, you know, a whole lot. Like, comment as much as you can, because that helps us. And like all the stuff. Like, hit the like button wherever it's at. And make sure that you share as well, because sharing is caring.
Yes, we need the money, and I need new underwear.
Me too, Lou. It's a guy thing. We always ask for socks and underwear at Christmas, right? So, but today we have a mother and daughter. Once again, we've had this once before, and we're gonna see how it works out for them. So across from Louis is our good friend, the softer side of Faith, Family, and Politics, Yvonne Metcalf.
Hello.
No cheers? 0 cheers.
Right.
You missed it, Ryan. No cues there.
Cheering alarm.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, Louis alarm on his phone. There we go. Now you get a cheers, Yvonne.
Why should it click on here? It wouldn't work.
he gave it a shot. He's still learning.
The dashboard.
Yeah, that's why Sterling's the perfect producer, and so we just got to get Ryan up to that point, right? But he's learning. He's giving it a shot.
Semi-perfect.
Yeah, he's getting there. And then our very special guest. She's the first time back since her leg finally healing up to a point where she can join us, because that was quite a journey, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Sarah Metcalf Allen.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be back and to be able to make those steps. Oof. I'm hurting. Hits foot on the turtle.
Yeah. For those listening on audio, we have a turtle in the studio. He's made of, I think it's ceramic. Anyhow, he's made of something that's pretty sturdy. So Sarah's currently using him as a footstool. He's George the turtle. So
When he had his own little George the turtle.
Yeah.
Our mascot. Yes.
Yeah. Normally George is sitting by our monitor and he's watching us. But this time he gets to see what you guys see. So, Sarah, we've got a message or you've got a message rather to bring this week, and I believe that's got a title.
Yeah. Children are arrows.
Look at that! I got a graphic for it. Thank you for getting that over to me early so that I could look that up. And
That's a great where you're shooting it. That's perfect.
Awesome. I'm glad that works out, because they don't always work out. Anyhow, would you like to pray over the message before we dive into it?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Lord, for today and for the show and allowing me to heal, to be able to make it down here, for Josh hosting and opening up his home, Louie and my mom being here to sit in and bring their observations, their perspectives to what we talk about. Thank you for your word. Thank you for the gift of children that you have given to many of us, especially for my own Serenity. Thank you so much for her. And I just pray that I listen to my own message tonight and send her out into the world to do your work. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so it's kind of a funny thing to say, right? Children are arrows. What's that mean? Well, that comes from a specific scripture reference in Psalm 127, Starting in verse 3, it says, "Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate." So it says there that they're a heritage, that it's a reward from God, and as arrows. So if you think old grammar rules as like it's a comparison, as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so a warrior using arrows, that's how children can be. And then it goes on and says, "Happy is the man that has his quiver full." If you know arrows, a quiver is where you hold the arrows. So it's saying a lot of kids, and they shall not be ashamed. So when you think, I know you listeners didn't really see that picture on the
Longer.
that for the title screen, but it was a picture of someone drawing back the arrow in the bow. And I say that was like the perfect picture, because when you think of a warrior, they don't just hold on to the arrows. They don't just leave them in the quiver. No, they take them out and they shoot them. They have a purpose. They're either hunting, so they're killing prey. They're protecting from some kind of beast or animal or some enemy. Like, there's a purpose for what they're doing. They don't just stay in the quiver. So that's kind of the first thing is, children are children, and we have them for a certain amount of time, but they're not supposed to just always be with us. They're supposed to go out. They have a purpose. They have a job to do that God has made for them. He created all of us with a specific purpose in mind, and we should not hold our children back. We should actually be the ones helping to shoot them out, to get them out into the world and doing what God wants them to do. Another thing about using a bow and arrow is you don't put a lot of stuff on an arrow. It's pretty basic, It's maybe like a little piece of wood, or like olden times, plastic or something now, I don't know. And then a metal tip, and then like the feathers at the end to kind of guide it. You don't add weight. You don't wrap it up with a bunch of stuff. Like, we shouldn't be weighing down our kids with anything. We shouldn't weigh them down with our worries. We shouldn't weigh them down with our expectations. Like, we need them to be able to move and do what they need to do with the least amount of resistance for them. We should be the ones helping them to do that. And then that takes me to another scripture reference found in Proverbs. That is going to be Proverbs 22:6, like my tissue notes. They make great bookmarks.
I do. Sounds like you have an issue. Here's a tissue.
But Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So it's saying, if you teach them the way that he should live, the way they should live and do what they need to do when they're older, they know what to do. They're not going to go away from that. Now, that's not a promise, which I used to think it was a promise, but it's not a promise. It's a proverb, which is a piece of conventional wisdom, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's what is most likely going to be true. So
They still have their own mind at the end of the day. They still have their own way that they're going to
exactly.
go.
But if you teach them and train them, you prepare them as best as possible, then more than likely they will stick to that. And that's what I mean about not weighing them down. If going back to the arrow analogy, we're not adding all the extra stuff to them, weighing them down or putting things in their way. We're letting it be as clean and efficient as possible. Help them go as far as possible. That's right. Yes. Yes. And it's something that even while they're a kid, you can know this. You can see this. I was doing the Awana lesson with the Sparkies, which is the kindergarten through second grade kids, the other night, and one of the girls said her verses to me, and it was Proverbs 20, verse 11. Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right. So even when they're still young, even before we necessarily shoot them out, people can already tell, like people tell me all the time, and I'm so thankful for it, that they tell me Serenity is a good kid. And I say she's a good kid,
Yeah.
And me and Sterling have done our best to teach her to be a good kid. And it's already showing now. And then hopefully, as she grows older and we keep teaching her, we keep helping her, we keep guiding her, then we can help shoot her out into the world to do whatever God wants her to do. Now, there's some examples of this, in the Bible. One in the Old Testament that I thought of when I was thinking about this was the story of Samuel. His mother, Hannah, didn't have kids when they were first married, and she really, really, really wanted a kid. And so she promised God, if you give me a kid, then I will give him right back to you. And so God heard her prayer, blessed her with a son, and she honored her oath to God. And when he was old enough, she took him to the temple, and he stayed there to learn how to be a priest, basically. And he was the last judge of Israel. He helped coronate two kings. He found Saul because the people begged him to find a king for him. So he found Saul, and then when Saul failed at being a king, unfortunately, God sent him to find David, which, there's so many stories about David. David alone could be an example that his father was teaching him right.
Yeah.
And he was pretty young when he was anointed by Samuel. He was really young. He was like a teenager when he fought Goliath. So he had already been taught these things. But Samuel was the one who anointed him. Samuel knew from a young age that his mom had made an oath, and she kept that oath. And then he went on and did these amazing things for God. And then in the New Testament, an example would be Timothy. And in 2 Timothy, it talks about how Paul is remembering Timothy's grandma and his mom, how they worshiped God, which means they were the influence for Timothy. They taught him. And then so when Paul came around, Timothy was already a young man doing what was good. He was known, for doing right. And so Paul kind of took him under his wing and trained him to be a pastor, and he did a lot of amazing work for God and helped Paul out in his ministry. And that's the kind of thing that we all should be doing as Christian parents. And even if you're not a Christian parent, you want what's best for your kid, right? You want them to succeed. You want them to be happy. You need to train them to do what's right. And then you need to let them go.
I was going to say, even outside of being a parent, too, being a mentor is another thing. Louis and I have kind of gone back and forth of being each other's mentor, because there's times where he's mentored me, and there's times I've mentored him, and making each other stronger, that's just another thing, another layer of it. At some point, we're all each other's parents in that way.
Absolutely.
Somebody has that knowledge that we need.
A lot of people can be involved in that process.
Well, going back to my two examples, Samuel was raised in the temple by not his, after his parents let him stay there, he was raised by the priest there. That wasn't the priest's son, but he still taught him how to do those things.
The mentorship. Yeah.
And then Paul, I said he took him under his wing. Paul wasn't his dad, but he taught him and helped him lead how to become a leader of a church. Like, so absolutely, even if you don't have that specific blessing of having your own children, there are plenty of people that you can do that with. And it can still be the same concept of you don't want to weigh them down. You don't want to get in their way. You want to help prepare them to go out and do what God has made them to do.
And that can be a learning process too, because I talked about this with a friend of mine earlier today, just hours ago actually, and we talked about how everybody lives in their own narrative, like everybody's their own central character, right? As we talked about, like the fact that when he would try to tell somebody something, he felt like they were just waiting for him to be done so that they could respond, as opposed to just listening to what he was trying to say, and then once he was finished, maybe they could respond if they wanted to. But it was more about just talking about what was going on. But it's like, oh man, that's because everybody lives in their own head in that way of like, this is player one, if for the video game that's out there, the one you're player one, and then everybody else is the NPCs or the non-playable characters in your video game world, and then they're just interacting with you, and unfortunately that's how just most people are. That's just human nature. We're all guilty of that, and we have to learn more of that parent type mindset of like, even if we're talking to another individual who may be our peer, to think about approaching it not necessarily as a parent, but just that more of a patient, right, Lou? We talked about that, and
Patient.
yeah, more of a patient outlook at it, and more of a compassion outlook on what we're talking about too. So whatever that may be,
Or listening and speaking too.
yeah. And listening is the very most important part. Very most important part.
It's like he said, patience, because a lot of kids are very difficult, and you got to know how to get through them. Because a lot of times you could teach them at home, but they learn more in the streets or in school, and then it makes it difficult for a parent to deal with that kid.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Parents should be a big part of the equation, but they aren't the only part ever. There's always going to be other influences.
Yes.
That's why the saying, it takes a village, to raise children. Like, that saying has been around forever for a reason. But it is a parent's responsibility. God has given them that responsibility to do that job. So it is a special honor, but it is a big responsibility.
Yes, and kids are always asking their moms for questions and always fighting back with them and arguing with them about what's this and what's that and why should I do this and why should I do that. That's when the patients come in, and you have to come in and then teach them the right way.
Definitely, yes.
You have to know your children,
Yes,
because everyone's different, obviously, and they're going to
everybody.
respond differently and have different strengths and weaknesses and things, like you said, that you can see early on that are, talents or whatever. And God will give you wisdom in that too if you ask Him for wisdom and help with that. He says if we ask for wisdom, He'll, what is that verse?
It's in James, I think.
James, right?
That's what having my Bible here is for. But yeah, Mom, you had 3 very different children.
I sure did.
And sometimes you tried to deal with us in the same way, but that didn't work.
No, 3 different minds.
And then other times you did it on an individual basis, and that worked out a lot better.
Right.
And yeah, it's James 1:5. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally, and it shall be given him,
And you can get around other people too. Other people can help you with that who have raised their children, and they can help you from their mistakes and from the things that they did right. Either way, I think it's better for the positive role model for some reason, because if you've made mistakes, I'm not sure that, you know, I mean, you can learn from them, but it's just better, I think, if you did it right, then you know for sure that it works, I guess. I'm gonna tread lightly here.
Yeah, I don't know, because I know. I mean, I was the good kid, right, Mom?
You know, your dad and I just had this discussion.
Tony was the bad kid. Carol was the quiet kid. I was the good kid.
You were really good, but I was really patient by the time I got to you. So I feel like if I'd been more patient with Carol and Tony, they probably would have done differently. But
Very possibly, but they also, like we said at the very beginning, we do the best that we can, but ultimately the kids are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
true.
I know that with my brother James and I, you know, like we're very different people now. Like we still get along just fine, but like when we were kids, it was reversed. I was quiet, and he was outgoing.
I can't imagine you quiet.
Well, and for me, most of it was embarrassment because my voice was high. And you know, the little boys, they have their voices high, and so I just wouldn't talk because I didn't want anybody to hear me talk, and so I would just not talk. I would just be quiet. And
not like you had nothing to say, but you
Yeah,
just didn't want anybody to hear.
yeah, I had plenty to say, just didn't want anybody to hear. Exactly.
Just wait for this time to do it.
Yeah,
So-
save it all up.
Yep, exactly. I put it in the bank, and releasing all the words past adolescence. So yeah, but then once I hit teenage years, and you know, then I became the outgoing one, and then he became very like stoic and like. Not to say that he can't get into a good conversation. He's not here. He's a ham too, but he's just more quiet, more reserved, like more take it all in. He's a lot like Sterling in that way, you know. And we've had some pretty like good deep conversations too. But he tends to be more of that direction. So my parents growing up, they got confused because they thought when we were smaller that I was the good kid, and that James was more of the bad kid. Not necessarily he was all that bad. He was, you know, as bad as they would let us, because we couldn't leave the front porch until we were I think like 10 years old or something like that. I think we still you know, broke those rules, but kids are going to do what they're going to do.
Mom and Dad, if you're listening.
The statute of limitations, I think. But then as we got older, when I became more outgoing, and then James became more reserved, then it was like, well, how do we deal with this? Because we've dealt with them. It was quite the change up, but they still had to get used to that, you know, figuring out and navigating. One kid that's very much social and in like every crowd, and then the other kid who's just like, I just want to hang out pretty much by myself, maybe a couple other people, you know. And he was like video games, and I was more like, I want to go outside and do everything, experience it all. So that's got to be difficult to essentially have two different parenting styles, same set of parents, and two different kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely different personalities, everything was different.
Well, you have a different purpose. Like Sarah's purpose is not Carol's purpose, and Carol's purpose was not Tony's purpose, you know. So God made you that way on purpose, and then you just have to figure that out and help them in that, and hone that, and aim that in that direction.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that arrow analogy really well, because if you've seen, especially in modern day arrowheads, there are so many different types.
Mm-hmm.
They can do different tests.
Mm-hmm.
Just the arrowhead, and then the bodies, the body of the arrow, those all come in different. They come in like metal, fiberglass, steel wood. Like
Material.
The material is different based on the task that's placed
Right.
before it. And then the feathers, the placement, the feather coloring sometimes, like all that, and even the length, everything that has to do with an arrow, like all of that is a factor in what's going to be the outcome of it.
I have a crossbow.
Exactly. See, and it's a whole other type of arrow.
Yep. You
And
just gotta pray and seek wisdom and actually do the work. Don't just leave them out there on their own.
Don't let it slide.
or throw them in front of an iPad.
It's so hard, yeah.
And always find the right person to help you teach your kids. 'Cause
Yeah.
not everybody
Right.
thinks the same, and
Yeah. Yeah. Careful of what village you decide to help raise your kids.
It's really good to just have your church help you out. Good Bible believing church to help you out.
Church is definitely a huge help when you have that community there. I'm thankful for my church and the church that I was raised in, which is the same but it's not.
I like your church a lot. I've been there. So
Yeah, we're waiting for you to come back. But growing up there, but then again, that was really good for me personally. It was very structured, and that just really helped me to thrive. It was not as good for my siblings. It felt oppressive and like they couldn't be who they were. So it just kind of depends, you know. They were always there for us, and even now with how the church is now, I'm glad that I have them for my daughter and the people around her. But it's a lot different than it used to be, you know. But I'm still thankful for those people, and I know that that's the
Different
leaders,
time.
and yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my short life, you know, so much has changed in the world. You know, it just is going faster and faster towards the end. And Lord come soon, you know, like in all the signs that he talks about. It's like, yeah, he can be coming anytime now. And I just want to do the best that I can for my daughter. And like I said, I was teaching those Awana kids, you know, and I'm going to be helping with the Sunday school here soon. All of those kids too, those aren't my children, but I am a part of those children's village to help raise them, to help their parents point them in the right direction and to shoot them out into the world.
Yeah. Let's get like another like mentoring chance, or we have that here sometimes. You know, we have a lot of young minds that come through here, and RT put it best. He said, when he came to visit here and be part of the show, him and Nick, he said, when I was in that room, I seen all different generations, and I was thinking like, well, yeah, it's like church, right? Like in my mind, when I was hearing him say it, there's all different generations. I seen them all like young and old, and everybody knew that they all had their place of wisdom within that, and it was really cool to hear that feedback, but at the same time, like, know that that's what God wanted all along with this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Absolutely.
to allow all different generations to be in one room, and all kind of pulling from each other and learning from the 66 books.
that would be great if everybody was to get together, all generation, all colors, and just get along.
But we've had at least some of that, a small sample of that here, right? And I mean, we got Mr. Ryan over there in the producer's booth, and you know, that's the next generation. We want him to succeed, so we got to try. That's why I want to talk about, like, he maybe not there yet, but he's still learning. Like, we're training him up. He's training him up in the way he's going to go, right? He's going to take this production knowledge that he's learned here, and he's going to be able to take that somewhere else if he wants to, or he can stay with us if he wants. But he can take that knowledge and go somewhere else, and all the Bible knowledge that he's learned from being here, whether through osmosis or or what have you.
Or listening. Are you listening? We just want to know.
Just wait for the next party on his phone.
But any way it goes, that he's here and he's a part of it, and he's learning something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of minds and a lot of wisdom collectively, even in the room right now. But you know, just in a general, any given week here, when we're doing this show, there's a lot of wisdom that comes in here in this room, and he can definitely benefit from that. And so can any other person who comes in here. You know, even if they themselves are a lot of wisdom, they can pull from everybody.
Oh yeah, we can all learn from each other. We've not been in each other's shoes. Like, I'm my mom's daughter, and I have not walked the same path that she has walked. Like,
Yeah.
it's been completely different.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a woman. You guys are men. You know,
I
I'm
was gonna
white.
say.
You're Puerto Rican. Like, those are very different things. Like,
Right.
we all have different life experiences, different perspectives on things, and it's good to bring that all together so that we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
But the good thing about it, different religion, different people, but we all honor the same person, and that's God. I don't know about Iran, but I know every other country honors God.
I mean, ultimately, everybody's going to bow down. Every knee will bow. Every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father.
And the funny thing is that the ones that don't believe, and when God comes, they're going to start praying and trying to believe, and it might be too late. So you better start now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right now.
Do it while there's time.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. That's what we talked about, like the signs of the times, right? Like, and it's nothing to be. It's not to be scared of. I want to press that button really hard right now. Hopefully, I'm not stepping on any toes here, but because that was based on another discussion here recently where I talked with someone who's he's agnostic, which he's kind of like where Alan was, right? Where he believes that there's a higher power, maybe, but he's not quite sure. And then he's got a lot of moral values that he's pulled from the Christian beliefs that he was raised in, but not quite. Doesn't really know about the whole Jesus thing. So the idea that the end times was something to be scared of. That's what he always heard from all these different churches. I'm like, it's not. It's nothing to be scared of. I said, if a church is telling you that it's something to be scared of, then they're telling you wrong. It's not. There's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to be scared of. It's actually something to look forward to. We should all be looking forward to the signs of the end times. And he said, why, Josh? Why would we be looking forward to that? That sounds so scary. The end. Well, because yes, the Euphrates is drying up. Yes, there's fresh water going into the Dead Sea. Yes, we are seeing, pretty much everybody pointing at Israel right now. These look like the season, right?
Right.
But then, what's that next thing it talks about? It talks about all these people accepting Christ. That's the next season it talks about. For a period of time. Now, I don't know if that's 10 days. I don't know if that's 100 years, 1,000 years. I don't know, because a day is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is a day. God's version of time is very different than our human understanding of it. So I'm looking forward to it. And that's what I would want everyone out there to hear. If you never heard that from a pulpit before, I want you to hear that here and now. Look forward to it. Because it's going to happen. It's going to be all over the world. All over the world. It's going to be global. India, China, all of them.
I've always, I've had some debate with that about some people because some people have said the opposite. But
It's right there in the book of Revelation. It's the very next step.
I really feel like that there will be a lot of people saved right before the end, and when that very last person is saved, then that's going to be it, and we're going to be called up and out of here, and then judgment comes. And that's why people are scared of it, honestly. But if you are a Christian, you don't need to be scared. You just need to know that your hope is in Jesus, and put your hope in Him, and then you can look forward to it like we can.
Exactly right. And then on top of that, once you've got your hope in Him, be caught doing something that God wants you to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, hey, if the end's tomorrow, then just be caught doing something He wants you to be doing. Don't be doing something He doesn't want you to be doing. Well, what are you doing right now while you're listening to us? Well, I mean, maybe you're doing something all right. You're just listening to us. Benignly, you're just listening. You're in your car, or maybe you're, at work or whatever. But, what if you're not doing something that's good? Let's stop that right now. I want to encourage you to be caught doing something God wants you to be doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm guilty of that too. I'm still a human person. You can say that because I think I think I could probably proclaim that everybody in this room is all guilty of that at some point or another, whether it be today or maybe another day, whatever.
Oh, for sure, because
Recent.
we're human beings. Yeah,
Yeah.
we forget. I mean, even
Yeah.
if you intend to try to do that, there are times that we get distracted or tempted, and we just don't. You know, so you have to get right back on track when you remember. And I think God gives grace for that too. But you know, you do the best you can, as we've been saying. I think this whole session, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that's something that you do need to kind of think about.
And I think you could easily practice doing like coping skills to go along with it. I know that the Bible doesn't spell out like, hey, use psychological coping skills, but I think that they're a great marriage. I think God gave us science, you know, and I think because it's His, right? It belongs to Him, and so I think that the good
True
things
science.
the things that come from psychology that are beneficial to human beings. Like I talked about box breathing. Louis and I have talked about box breathing. It's the Navy SEALs do box breathing. It reduces stress and it helps them to think clearly.
Interesting.
Actually, you can practice this right now if you'd like to, because I can guide you through it. So what you do is just like a box is a square, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got four sides, and then you have to count four. So of 1 to 4. Now think about this. What can your mind do while it's thinking about breathing and counting at the same time? Can it think about anything else? No, because it can only do 2 tasks at once, honestly. Woman, man, doesn't matter. I know that you multitaskers and men are not multitaskers. Doesn't matter. When you're breathing and counting, you can't do anything else. So what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and imagine, close your eyes and imagine something that would make you really upset, something that would make you really angry. The worst case scenario, right? Put yourself in that emotional place. And then hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now breathe in and raise your shoulders at the same time. 2, 3, 4. Now hold. 2, 3, 4. Now lower your shoulders and breathe out. 3, 4. Audibly. Let it all out. That's box breathing. Now, when you started out, and you had that negative thought in your head, you don't have to say what it was, but is it still there? Is it really still there?
No.
No. And is it that big of a worry right now?
No.
No. That's the idea. It's one of many coping skills that people can employ themselves. And this is something you can start your day off with. It's part of your morning prayers. I mean, if you're praying and then you say, "Okay, God, I'm just going to breathe for a few seconds," and another beneficial thing to it, scientifically speaking, and once again, science is God, so we're going to give it to Him. When you do that breathing, it does 3 different things within the body. It releases endorphins, dopamine, naturally, and it oxygenates your blood.
Yeah.
Need that.
Yeah.
Right.
It helps you also with your kids and your husband.
I was going to say, yeah, in that stressful situation, you might be able to do that and really get relief, like immediate relief.
And you know, like I said, you always think about the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it's something you can always go back to. And I've done this, I've practiced this here recently, and it's really helped me. And I've watched a lot of other people it helped in their lives as well. And Lou and I both have been practicing it quite a bit with each other, just because we can get each other worked up.
I used it today with my old lady. She got me kind of upset. I went outside and I did it. And I was relaxed after a while. Came back in and I killed her. No.
With kindness, killed her with kindness.
Then we was talking and we got along again.
Talking helps.
Yeah.
And being in the right frame of mind to talk helps.
Mm-hmm.
It does help.
It does.
So that's my other coping skill. So I've had and because I've been an angry person my whole life, believe it or not. I may not always show it, and you may not always see it for anyone around me, but I've been a very angry person my whole life, and but I've taught myself and over time to take a beat. That's my new like little thing I tell myself. Take a beat. It's kind of like the be still and know that I am God. So it's this different sentence, but it's still saying it's the same thing. I'm still telling myself to be still and listen to God, right? So for that few seconds, and then I go into my breathing. So I gotta stop myself before when I feel anger come on, because when you're gonna get angry. Everybody knows that little feeling where it's just like it's tingles in your fingers, you get a little bit hot, and you can feel your breathing start to increase, and your heart starts to maybe race a little faster, and maybe you clench your fists, that kind of thing. All that stuff. That's when say, okay, take a beat. So stop it in its tracks, because if it's really not going to be beneficial to you or anyone else around you, go ahead and take that beat. We still know that He is God. At your moment of prayer, because if we're breathing, we're praying. Honestly, and I'll get to that in a moment too. But then you got then you go right into your breathing 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're counting and you're breathing, you're releasing all of that. But also, go back to the breath. If you're breathing, you're praying. What's God's name? Yahweh, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
I've heard this too.
Yes. So when you breathe in, you breathe out. You're praying if you're breathing. So, box breathing is just another form of prayer. Isn't that great?
Yes, it is.
That's a good way for us to get away from all the negative things that have been poisoning our minds and even our bodies, really. Yeah, because it's just everywhere nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Not anger all over the world.
Yeah, the stress can really hurt you physically too.
Oh, absolutely.
And these are things that we can then pass on to our next generation. These coping skills, these things that we've learned for a long time. For me, it was playing music. That was my out. Those things. I think working with your hands tends to be your out, right, Lou? Like I've seen you really, because man, when he's angry, he can do construction like nobody's business.
And I do walks. That's been my go-to for a long time. I go for a walk. And to that point, I need to go for a walk.
That's another good stressful
Yeah.
way of doing it.
And I'm breathing then too.
I like getting lost in something. So whether that is listening to music or coloring or playing this little number game that I have on my phone, but it's almost mindless, but not completely mindless.
Yeah.
I have to concentrate on that thing only.
Yeah.
So it takes away everything
And
else.
some of those games are very good for that. I like that for the coloring, and I have a word game that I do also that's kind of like that.
Yeah, coloring is good too. So
Mhm.
it kind of makes you concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that way, it's like the box breathing. It's another coping mechanism that you're fully concentrated on it, so everything else is, you can't think about anything else because you're like, the dog is red, so that's all I need to think about right now. Yes.
I use that a
Right,
lot
the
in
big red dog.
the old folk song.
Uh-huh.
They make you color books and all that, so you could concentrate on the coloring and not worry about your sickness and what you're going through and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You don't know anything about that though.
No, but my mother taught me about it because she's going through it now.
I can see you now, they're making me color. I can't believe they're making me color.
My mother never used to color, but now she tells me, yeah, they got me coloring now. I'm there coloring for hours.
You can really get lost in it.
You really can, yeah.
It can be fun, like any kind of art, really. And I've tried to encourage. There's just some of my friends are like, "Oh, I'm just not really much of an artist." That doesn't matter. You don't have to be great at drawing to draw to calm yourself down. Like, just draw something. Like it doesn't have to be a perfect circle every time. It doesn't have to be a great triangle. Just draw something, even if it's just swirls on the paper. It's just cathartic. It takes so much stress off of you just to make something and use your mind to do it, because then, like you said, you're fully concentrated on the task at hand, so everything else can just disappear. And I think putting your mind in a creative space where writing is another one.
Yeah.
Writing.
I
Yeah.
love to write.
I was getting ready to say that, journaling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another.
I like to write. I like to write positive paragraphs. Like I like to write like things that uplift. Like it's not necessarily biblical, but just
There was also something else that Debbie had taught us a few years ago with using people's names, that you can be creativity, like praying over them or something, and also doing like an artistic work with their name. Like you can.
Oh, like calligraphy.
Kind of like that, yeah. As you're doodling or whatever with the name and making it really beautiful, and thinking about them and praying for them, and it was just all one piece. It was very interesting. I'd never tried that before. So
That is really cool.
tried a little bit of that.
I think I'd like to try that. Yeah.
I'll have to ask Karen for that.
Right, just ask her.
Shout out to
Hopefully she's watching.
Hi, Karen.
Comment back here. We need the comments.
She's not that kind of Karen, okay?
Oh my word.
You're welcome. We needed that.
Oh man, where are we at on time, Ryan? Where are we at on time?
47.
Cool. So yeah, that can lead us right into a politics portion. Yeah. Is that
I
okay?
have a feeling after looking at these articles, it's going to take us a minute.
Well, and given the fact that we're only at 47 minutes, allows us time for my fourth secret article, so we'll do that one as well.
Oh, great surprise!
Yeah.
Real reactions.
Yeah.
Unfiltered.
Don't worry, you guys will.
Just use the box breathe.
So, coming from the Daily Wire, that's our first article of the night. Democrat mayors request urgent meeting with Biden over influx of illegal immigrants into their cities. Democrat mayors of 5 major cities sent a letter to President Joe Biden last week requesting a meeting to discuss the mass influx of illegal immigrants into their cities. Mayors Eric Adams of New York City, Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Karen Bass of Los Angeles, Mike Johnson of Denver, and Sylvester Turner of Houston wrote Biden on October 28th asking for additional federal funding and expedited approval for illegal immigrants to begin working in their cities. Sounds like there's a pretty common thread here. They're major cities and they're all ran by Democrats. Yeah, too. Hypocritical of them, I think. Anyway, the mayors began the letter first obtained by the Associated Press by thanking Biden for the previously allocated $1.4 billion in funds for food and shelter, and by approving work authorization for illegal immigrants from Venezuela. Quote, while these courageous actions represent critical first steps, we believe additional action is needed and believe, as the mayors leading many of our most affected cities, we can be helpful partners in identifying solutions. To address this crises, without further delay, we are requesting an urgent meeting with you to directly discuss ways we can work with our administration to avoid large numbers of additional asylum seekers being brought to our cities with little to no coordination, support, or resources, the mayors wrote. Busloads of migrants who illegally crossed into Texas have been sent by Governor Greg Abbott of Texas to New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles, places that have branded themselves sanctuary cities. The influx has cost the cities hundreds of millions of dollars, and municipal officials have struggled to struggled to find places for the migrants to stay. Now, not that long ago, you got some.
Poor baby. Now you crying.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's the perfect
Wah, wah.
thing to say there. And because it wasn't that long ago that all these same people said, no, we can take them. We're sanctuary cities, right?
AOC was one of them that she was crying when she saw those immigrants over there and fences and all that, and
Yeah.
happy that they came first to New York, but now she got a different point of view.
Yeah. She cried at the empty parking lot by the border. That was something. Anyway. Now they're saying, oh, there's too many, essentially. But this is a very long way of putting it. There's too many. Stop them from coming in.
Yeah.
I wonder who had a solution. This guy named Donald Trump might have, talked about building a wall, big, beautiful wall. Kept a lot of people out. I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, just by numbers, I think, and I don't want to misquote, so I'm gonna say that this is off the top of my head, so it's not actual numbers. So I preface with that. Hopefully they don't boot us off of platforms. But anyhow, the numbers under Trump were, I think, 1/10, if that.
Sounds about right.
It's
It was
right
very
about
low.
that. Very
Actually,
low.
it was the lowest in like 70 years or something, insane like that. The
Since
lowest
pre-Reagan,
numbers.
yeah, lowest number since pre-Reagan, I believe. And it's like, well, how does that happen? Well, a wall was part of that.
That was part of that, and he also did quite a few other things. He made the deal with Mexico, and they were closing their border and keeping asylum seekers in their country. And then he talked to the other countries and said, we're sending them back. And they said, no, you're not. And he said, yes, you are. And he made a deal with them, and they said, yes, we are. And so, and he allowed ICE to do their job, and he allowed Border Patrol to do their job. And it worked much better.
And we're not keeping everybody out. We're letting people in, but we're letting the right people in. We don't want some criminal or some rapist. We got plenty of that here. We don't need any more. We need the right people that are coming in here with families and willing to work and become something in America.
Right.
Yeah, because when you see those caravans, what's mostly what you see? Military-age men, right?
Right now, it's very dangerous. They said it's getting more dangerous now because that's all they're seeing now.
How many communists they already found coming in?
Last group was 7,000 crossing the border at once.
And you know who's
of men.
You know what nationality has actually come across the Mexican border more than any other nationality?
I'm not sure.
Chinese.
Okay, I did hear Chinese. I also heard Venezuelan.
By massive numbers. There's more Chinese illegally crossing the border.
Communists.
Those are just the ones they know about.
Right, the ones,
Yeah.
that not counting gotaways. Yeah, that's just.
Which that's something.
We're in very difficult times right now. We just are.
Aren't gotaways? And that's something that's an actual term. Oh, they just got away.
Gotaways, yeah.
Yeah. Count him. Put him up. Put the hash mark on the chalkboard. He got away.
So if we ever go to war with China or Russia, because a lot of Russians are coming in too.
They're here.
They're here, and we're going to have to be fighting them here as
Right.
well.
Because they're already here. Yeah,
Mhm.
already set up and, already settled in. Yeah.
Pretty good case for a little thing called the Second Amendment, isn't
Yes.
it?
Protect yourselves.
Yeah.
Be smart.
And not only get yourself a firearm, but learn how to use it. I can't stress that enough. Learn how to use it safely, how to store it.
Keep it safe from the kids.
Exactly.
Yes.
How to properly store it, how to use it, how all the good things that makes it truly a home protection.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if you're like me and Louie, you're carrying. You're out when you're out and about too, because you never know what's going to happen out and about in the world. You could be at the grocery store when things happen.
Yeah.
Just like the young man at Greenwood Mall.
Yes, exactly.
There was plenty of times I went to Walmart or Democrat had something.
Mhm.
Kroger's, I meant to say.
Sorry.
I had some guy. I had some guy trying to pick a fight with me or something, and always tell them you better go away, and then I go like this a little bit to show them I got a gun, so they can just walk away, and they just walk away once I show it to them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, just brandishing a weapon will make a criminal walk away from a situation. That's why the FBI can't get actual numbers on how many guns actually save lives, because just brandishing the gun. I had a situation at a gas station not that long ago where I got a guy that came up to me and kept, one of those people that just wants to ask for gasoline, but he said, "Oh, my car broke down the road." And I know he was lying. I could smell it on his breath how much he was lying from 14 feet away. And I said, "Don't come any closer." And my friend was in the car. He's unassuming at all. He's on his phone. He's not paying attention to nothing. And I'm underneath the hood of my vehicle at the time, putting some fluids in my vehicle. And I told him, I said, "Don't you dare come any closer." And that's when I lifted up my shirt just a little bit so he could see that I was carrying it. And he backed away, thankfully for both of us, because I don't want to have to use it. But I will use it to protect myself.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
needed. But you have situations like that.
Yeah, it is a prevention, and you're right, they can't track it, but I mean, it's definitely a prevention.
But that's a life that, potentially that saved both me and my friend's life.
Exactly, yeah. And that man, too, because he backed away.
Exactly.
Just like
Just from
in
seeing
New York, they know you got a gun. That's why they jump on you. They rob you, and you got a lot of these teenagers in New York jumping on an old man or an old lady and robbing them. And people staying around there doing nothing.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, they make a game of it too.
Mm-hmm.
They tape it and put it on their TikTok and they make a game. They call it a knockout game. There was a boy here recently who he had an interview with the news. He was one of them that was playing the knockout game, and he wondered why everybody was so upset with him. He said, "Oh, it was just a mistake. You were actively going out and hitting people in the head, like you could have killed somebody. You're a young man with presumably quite a bit of strength, and you're going out and striking people that, if they're of a certain age, one hit, that's all it takes, and they go to the ground and they're going to die."
And that's why
One
they
hit's
do
all
that.
it takes, no matter what age you are, if you're
Yeah.
hitting the right place.
Yeah.
And that's why they do that in New York, because they know you don't carry a gun because it's against the law. So
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
take advantage of that.
Yeah, so it makes it more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I was floored by that. He was like, "Oh, I can't understand why people would be so upset. Think about your consequences, kid. Like, you could have would.
Yeah, somebody needs to sit down with a medical book and explain what happens when you get hit in the head.
Yeah, not only that, but like if he had been in a different state, if he had been there, the consequences would have been much more. He would be in prison right now,
Yeah.
and for a very
That's
long time.
assault, I
Yeah.
think. Assault and battery, isn't it?
Yeah,
I seen this man get hit in New York, got punched. He fell backwards, hit his head on the concrete, and died right there
Mm-hmm. It happens.
over a punch.
yeah. The
Sometimes it
man.
happens accidentally.
Yeah.
You push somebody back and they trip and hit their head.
Mm-hmm.
The man that
That's
robbed.
happened.
That's why
Mhm.
there's a law for like being in front of somebody and pushing them over.
Yeah, there was the man that died at the Home Depot not too long ago. I think it was like earlier this year. He was trying to stop somebody from coming out of the garden section because they were stealing. They were stealing a whole bunch of stuff, and then they just pushed the older man over. I think he was in his later 70s, early 80s. And yeah, that's all it took. He just got pushed over, and he went to the hospital and
When
died
you
there.
get that age, you're very
Right.
vulnerable
Mhm.
because at that age your bones start getting sore and tender, and your skin. Anything could happen to you. You
Mhm.
fall, you break a rib.
Mhm.
Anything could happen.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot easier to break bones at that
Mhm.
point.
My mother just fell down on her bed to the ground and broke 3 ribs.
Mm-hmm.
She's 90-something years old.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are very delicate when they get that age.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
and it can only be worse if these people are willing to break that law. How many other laws are they willing to break?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're already here by breaking the law. They're breaking the law by being here. That's the argument. People say, "Oh, well, we don't have compassion for them." Of course, I have compassion for them. I would love for them to have the best life possible. If they in fact have merit. But if they came here legally, gone through at least some of the process, I would respect that
I
a lot
think,
more.
yeah,
If you're already willing to break that law, what other laws will you be willing to break?
Mhm.
And then you could come down here illegally, and they don't know who you are. They don't got.
No
You
papers.
could kill somebody and then go back to your country.
Yep.
And nobody knows. There's no record. There's no way to trace you. Yeah. That's there's so many problems with it. It's a multiple problem issue.
And crime just I wonder why crime keeps going up in all these major cities, including Indianapolis.
Mm.
Right? It's because they're not, but these mayors are writing saying, "Oh, please stop them from coming in." Stop. You should never
Stop them at the border.
stop them at the border and send them back. You find them, send them back. Let them know that there are consequences to breaking the law. It just, obviously, if they can show that they've established a place of work and they're trying to do something, maybe we could work something out. I do have that much compassion for them. I say that there should be some kind of program for that. If they can show that they've established some kind of work, they've established that they're in a community, they're not just surviving, they're actually thriving within the community, they're being part of their community. Maybe there can be something like that there.
They
But
have
outside of
needed
that,
to work on that, the legal immigration issue for a long time, because it can take you 7 years to become
there needs to
an
be
immigrant
reform.
legally, definitely, but they can't do it until they stop the illegal immigration because, it's just defeating the purpose when you do that. Excuse me.
No problem. One thing at a time, right? And you have to get rid of the larger issue so that you can focus on.
I
The
know,
smaller issue.
Yeah.
I know there's one guy that he was against guns. He didn't want guns around him until one of his kids got shot. Now he believes in carrying a gun
Mm-hmm.
because his kid got shot. He didn't die, but he got shot. Now he carries a gun to protect his kids.
Mm-hmm. Because you live through something like that, you have to make different choices.
Mm-hmm.
It would change your mind for sure, or at least you hope it would. But if there's a gun behind every blade of grass, then they'll hopefully still think twice before they try to attack us, right? No matter how many people they send over the border. Speaking of borders and issues with it, a second story is also from Daily Wire. A matter of good versus evil. Mike Johnson champions aid to Israel. Speaking with Fox News, Kayleigh McEnany, House Speaker Kayleigh McEnany spoke with House Speaker Mike Johnson. Minced no words about the necessity for providing aid to Israel as it fights the terrorist group Hamas, saying this is a matter of good versus evil. He said, let's talk about one of those areas of common ground, potentially this Israel aid package, standalone Israel aid. The reporting is that there will be a vote, hopefully Thursday. Is that the time you're looking at? He said, yes, I am hoping Thursday. She said, it looks like 14.5 billion is the number that you're looking at. It seems like a big number, right, to send to a foreign country. And because we've already sent so much to Ukraine. And you suggest that maybe get a bipartisan vote there, McEnany stated. I sure hope so, Johnson said. Do you have any sense of the number of Democrats who you think might come for that vote? He said, I hope it's most all of them. I mean, there's a few people who have philosophical differences on that, but we'll have some intense debates about their opposition to that. But look, this is a matter of good versus evil. He sees Israel as the good, because it's God's people, and it's God. He promised them that land, and Hamas is evil. And obviously, Hamas is a terrorist cell, and they've attacked Americans as well. They still have some American hostages.
They slaughtered a bunch of innocent people. That's how this all started.
Exactly. But at the same time, and
they've been shooting rockets for a long, long time at Israel, constantly.
But also at the same time,
it's Israel's war, as they say.
Yeah, that's what they'll say. Yeah. Well, Hamas has always got all their narratives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Johnson explained that he wanted to take money that the Biden administration had earmarked for expanding the Internal Revenue Service, remember those 87,000 new IRS employees? Well, he wants to reallocate that money to Israel. Um,
Sounds like a better use of the money.
and he just wants to use some of it. So if that money's already there, it's already been budgeted, which that was 67 billion is a lot to be budgeted towards a government agency, a three-letter agency that does nobody any good because tax is theft.
It doesn't even help the government.
Exactly. They just want 14.5 billion of it. Now, those numbers seem arbitrary to all of us because 14. What's a billion look like? None of us has ever seen a
I
billion.
think we really lost track of the numbers that they're dealing with. It's insane. It's going to take an intervention of God as far as the money is concerned too. I mean, it really is. But that's another issue. But I think he's right. I think it should be a standalone thing. It should not be Ukraine and Israel. It should just be for Israel because they are our friends in the Middle East, and we have a reason to stand by them. They've always stood by us, and it's a command of God that we're supposed to stand by them, so there's a lot of good reasons to stand with them. Ukraine, on the other hand, has always been known to be corrupt, number one. Number two, there's a lot of questionable activity
Money laundering.
the Biden family and Ukraine, and more keeps coming up every day. So
Yeah, the 200,000 emails.
For Biden and
a really, really bad idea right there.
for Biden, it's used for Ukraine because that's where they use to launder that money.
Yeah, not only that, but most of the, not all, there are probably some good Ukrainian people, but a large portion of Ukrainian people are neo-Nazis. That's their full-on belief that they like the swastikas and the whole bit. They're into that. It's like, why are we protecting this country? And one of the arguments they'll come up and say, oh, it's because of the wheat. They produce a lot of wheat. So does Africa. Like, so does the United States. Like, there's wheat comes from other places. We don't need to protect this little bitty piece of land. Not only that, but like Russia's going to win against Ukraine. It's inevitability. Even if we send a bunch of our military tech over there, even if we send these billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, whatever we send over there, it's not going to matter. Russia outnumbers Ukraine like 100 million to 1.
But their morale is very low, I will say, for the Russian people, the troops. They are, in fact, he's ordering to kill the troops if they will not follow his orders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And the whole
they'll just
thing.
find somebody to replace them, is what I'm saying.
Right, it's literally a slaughter. Just a lot of people dying for nothing,
Exactly.
and they really needed to stop that at the get-go, which is what Trump said that he would have done if he was in office. It never would have happened.
He said, I just want people to stop dying.
Right. I mean, both sides have lost who knows how much there, but we can't keep pouring money into it because it's not
No.
helping.
It's also not the
Not
United
really
States.
in the end, and for all the other reasons that we just said.
War doesn't help anybody. We fought in Vietnam for what? We didn't win that. We got out of there because we were spending so much money and losing soldiers like crazy. Iran, we got out of there. What was the sense of going there in the first place? If we were going to give it up and then let Iran take it over again.
Iraq
And now we're going to Ukraine. Come on now, when is it going to stop?
We're not the police of the world, which is something that
They say that we're the peacemakers, but where did we make peace? Everybody's killing everybody. We ain't making no peace. We're just making things worse.
Yeah, and we're trying to use our ideology of democracy to justify, not us as individuals, but I'm just saying America is using that to justify this proxy war.
it would be nice if it would work, but in certain cultures it won't work.
And with a culture filled with nothing but neo-Nazis, I don't think it's going to work. I think what I'm saying is, like, Russia's going to do what Russia's going to do. And Ukraine's going to do what they're going to do. Let them fight it out. Neither one of them are part of anything that USA is part of. We're not in any alliance with them. We have no business giving them any money. That they are not America. They're not Americans. They're American territories. We have nothing to do with it.
They're not even in the
UN.
the UN.
Mm-hmm.
They're not,
Or
they're not NATO. They're not in any of it.
Or NATO. Yeah, NATO's the one I guess I was thinking of. But they wanted to be part of NATO, but they haven't joined NATO yet. So.
Well, they don't have the money.
Right.
So, but if Russia was part of, if Russia went ahead and took over Ukraine and Russia could restructure, maybe they get a new leader in Russia. Maybe. I'm not going to know a lot of maybes here, but then maybe Russia becomes something good. Maybe.
Yeah, John and I have discussed this a lot, even about the immigration, because if people would go back and fight for their own country and fight for their own freedom in their own country and do the work that we did in our revolution and create a new country, with boundaries and with laws, and with Christian values, that's the thing that helped us. If they would go back and do that in their own country, then they could have what we have. Yeah. Instead of coming here and saying, well,
and begging for money that they're not even using for. A lot of the weapons Louis talked about on his show. A lot of the weapons that Ukraine got recently, they gave it to or sold it to Iran, and then Iran turned around and gave those weapons to Hamas. Those are American weapons in Hamas's hands.
Mm-hmm.
We, by proxy, have now funded the war against Israel.
Same thing with Afghanistan, with all the things that we left there. I mean, they became an arms dealer, and they sold all of our stuff to various countries that don't like us. And lo and behold, send our men over there, and they're looking at their own weaponry. So it's not good. We need better leadership, and we need God's intervention a lot. If anything's going to change, and He holds the world in His hands.
Yeah, I think if we're going to send money to Israel, I think reallocating funds that are already out there is the best way to do it. Not trying to drum up new debt. Because how many shutdowns we had? Almost had shutdowns recently.
I like Mike Johnson a lot. I think he's going to be so good. He went there and prayed very first thing, and he was unapologetically Christian. And he said he was unapologetically, had a biblical worldview. If you heard his speech, I don't know if you heard his speech when he became speaker.
Great, 19 minutes.
But yes, it was excellent, and I'm really hopeful for him because he will be a good leader.
Third in line for the presidency, by the way. Like if there's something,
right.
Biden
That has
just
been in the back of my brain. I'm telling you the truth. They're getting ready to impeach Biden, so we'll see what happens after that. Well, no, I'm sorry. They're getting ready to charge him. They're not ready to impeach him yet. Anyway, they're working on it.
The funny part about Biden is that every time somebody wants something from somebody like Kamala, and I'm black, too, so you could like her. Now Biden is saying that he's part Jewish, a man that was born in Pennsylvania. How could he be part Jewish? He said he was born in Jerusalem. That's a lie. He was born in Pennsylvania. Not in Iran. Not in Israel.
Not in Israel.
He's lying.
He may be part Jewish, but I think I have heard that about him, but he certainly doesn't act like it.
He was raised Catholic.
Oh, geez, Hitler was part Jewish.
Right, that could be a lot of people, right?
Yeah. It doesn't mean that they're Jewish, they're real true Jewish.
No. Not with the culture and traditions and everything that goes with it, or with the religion.
There's the blood relation, and there's
the culture and all that. You're not a Jew. You might as well forget about it. Don't even say you're a Jew.
Yeah, genetically speaking, I'm 4% Ashkenazi Jewish, but I'm not actually Jewish. I don't have any Jewish traditions. I don't have a menorah during Hanukkah. I don't celebrate it.
He won't fast for 7 days.
No way.
Aren't you glad you're not Jewish?
Very.
Oh dear.
Very, yeah.
Oh my, that's crazy.
Thanks, Lou. It's very observant of
because it does speak of fasting in the Bible, but
It does. Yeah, that's a whole other message. Speaking of whole other messages, because this is going to take us away from those types of subjects, but it's coming from Just the News. Eventbrite is in hot water with conservatives after removing Riley Gaines' event on women in sports. The event and ticketing company could face a conservative boycott, the likes of which dethroned Bud Light this year, as Virginia's Governor Youngkin tells his operations to stop using the service. Eventbrite's co-founder and chairman, Kevin Hartz, ended a message to those raising the issue by saying, "Please go F yourself." So, wow.
isn't that professional?
Right?
Okay.
The online ticketing and event management company Eventbrite notified prominent women's sports personality Riley Gaines that her event advocating against allowing transgender individuals in women's sports would not be permitted on their website for violating its community guidelines, while at the same time maintaining other event pages that may violate the rules. The incident has put the company in hot water with conservatives, including the Republican governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who directed his office and political committee to cease using Eventbrite to advertise events. Last week, Gaines posted a communication on X, formerly Twitter, that she received from Eventbrite, notifying her that her event, quote, "Protecting Women's Sports with Riley Gaines," that was the name of the event, would be removed from its website for violating community guidelines in terms of service. Specifically, we do not allow content or events that throw on or off platform activity, discriminate against, harass, disparage, threaten, incite violence against, or otherwise target individuals or groups based on their actual perceived race, ethnicity, religion, national origin, immigration status, gender identity, sexual orientation, veteran status, age, or disability. The notification read, "As a result, your event has been unpublished," Eventbrite declared. In the same post, Gaines called for a boycott of the company over the removal of her event. She said, "I love all the people in my comments saying that they've deleted their Eventbrite account," Gaines wrote. "Give them the Bud Light treatment." Now, given that this is leaning towards women in particular, I would like to defer to what the ladies think about what's happening here with Riley Gaines, the young swimmer who does prefer not to have transgender individuals swimming next to her.
I have such strong thoughts and opinions and beliefs about the transgender, all of the LGBTQIA plus whatever. And it's just so hard. It's like, where do I even go with it? The simple thing is, yes, I agree with her for sure, that you're transgender means you're still male, which means that physically God made male more physically capable, because the male was the one that was supposed to work the ground and provide for the family.
That's when you're older. But when you're younger, the woman's always stronger than the man.
Okay, well,
But once puberty happens, men are bigger, stronger, faster, generally speaking.
and and not to say that women can't do those things, because women can for sure.
They can do a lot of things, yes.
But God created man to be physically more capable for that type of thing.
Right.
It's just how they were made. So to pit them against a woman, it's going to make it. I mean, that's why you don't have men and women compete against each other to begin with, because there is that much of a difference.
That's why they separated women's sports and made women's sports actually a separate thing.
Yeah, because like I said, there are some women. Sure, there are some women I'm sure who could compete with those men, but that's very, very small.
Well, Riley would have been one of those that could compete on the lowest rungs of the men's, but still, even because she did have better times than some of the lower rungs of the men.
Yeah.
But Leah Thomas, formerly William Thomas, we might get kicked off of YouTube just for saying that, because I now have dead named him. But he, I'm going to say he, was swimming next to Riley Gaines, and he went from being 238th in men's, 238th, mind you. Now he's competitive at that level, good enough to be 238th in the men's. Goes over to the women's as a transgender individual. Didn't really change anything other than taking some hormones for a while. And now he's number one.
That's a big jump.
I don't think that's fair.
It's
Yeah.
not.
And it's not what God intended. My other side of that is where I get into the weeds, I guess, going down these rabbit holes. Why did he feel like he needed to do that? Like, I saw something the other day. I have transgender friends on my Facebook. Like, I know two personally. One I went to school with for a long time. I played sports with her. Like, I worked with this other one, like, for a couple of years. Like, I know them personally. And I just don't understand. But one of them posted this, and it it said, why do people question why transgenders think the way they do? And it goes on this long post about when these parents or grandparents or whoever were buying gifts for their kids, and at some kind of like toy shop or grocery store, anywhere really, everything's so gendered. It's like, oh, you can't put a blue bow on that, it's for a girl. You can't buy play food, it's for a boy. Like, and their thought was this, and you wonder why we think we need to be transgender. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is wrong thinking. That doesn't make what you're thinking right.
No, both things are wrong thing.
Both things are wrong. Two wrongs don't make it right.
We actually we talked about that when Miss Crystal Rosati was on. We was talking about the idea that she actually didn't really care. She liked the color blue more than she liked the color pink.
Yeah.
And she did actually have that day, ironically, a pink container with her, but it that was like the one pink thing she owns, right? So like but colors. The only reason they were gendered, the only reason these toys and all the things that we see in the marketplace are gendered, the things that we consume, goes back to a man named Edward Bernays. Do you know this name?
I feel like I've heard it, but
I think I've heard the story, but
Yeah,
Carry
see,
on.
he's the father of advertisement. So the American breakfast used to be leftovers from the night before. Because most Americans were farmers for a very long time until the Industrial Revolution, right? So, but then once they started having to go to the factories, and women were going into the factories and men were going off to war, and both sides were working. Well, they said, well, women are now earning a paycheck. We need to do something to sell them something too. And then actually during a little thing called suffrage, they had a lot of young ladies that would bob their haircuts, and they dress differently, maybe even wear their bras on the outside of their clothes or just take them off completely. But something that Edward Bernays saw a chance to sell was cigarettes, in particular. I'll get to that in just a second. Go back to the American breakfast before we do that. American breakfast. He's the reason it's eggs, bacon, and sausage like that. Before he decided it was breakfast, it was never marketed that way. It was just whatever you had the night before. It was light, usually, eggs, bacon. That's a light breakfast. That's a light meal. You start your day off with, and you go out and you do your work in the field, whatever you're doing. Back to the cigarettes. Okay, I know I'm hopping around a little bit, but with the cigarettes, he handed them to the women that were in the high up in the suffrage movement. They photographed them smoking their cigarettes. Guess what we called them? Freedom torches.
Mm-hmm.
Gave them the freedom from the oppression of men.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about their freedom. It wasn't about their oppression, which is the lie that keeps continually being sold to these young people, that they are oppressed, that they're a victim, that they have something going on with them, there's something wrong with them, that something should be done because it's a boy, because it's a girl. All that's pushed on them. And so they get confused. And it all goes back to Edward Bernays and him twisting what should have been purely seller to buyer. Any product ever should have been is seller to buyer, but modern marketing now is very gendered. You watch a commercial, and well, it's usually either geared toward men or geared toward women, or now
And you can
it's
definitely
all kinds of
tell,
mixed up.
yeah,
They're intentionally
who their target audience is. Yeah.
intentionally confusing people.
It's kind of funny that
Yeah.
they choose gender by colors. Pink is girl, blue is boy. I remember one time when I wore a pink shirt and went outside, forget about it. I've been called girl,
Names.
Nancy, all kinds of that. And man, I didn't know that a pink shirt would make me get these people to not like me. From there on, I started hating pink. I never wore a pink shirt again.
Yeah, on a side note,
That's a societal thing that puts that pressure on there, and that does not help. You know, that is, and they're using that as their reason.
And they're pinning this person is okay to swim. That's how they're up there saying it's okay for this biological male who's definitely bigger, stronger, faster. Even at 238th in the men's, he's still bigger, stronger, faster than, even with all the hormones he's went through, and his bone structure is definitely weaker because of it, because that's what happens when you put female hormones into men. It completely kills the male bone structure. But still bigger, faster, stronger, and he's going to be number one. And for them to cancel her event, and all she's just trying to do is raise awareness for women, to bring up women in a good, positive light, and say, hey, women want to compete with other women and not men. I think that's fair.
yeah, and there's the rest of that too, the locker rooms and the bathrooms and everything. All of that is just, that's a whole nother issue.
Oh,
With
yeah.
You want to have privacy, and that it's a natural thing.
I
So
think that's
you don't
pretty
want to
bad.
be, dressing or undressing in front of the opposite sex. I mean, it's not decent,
Well,
to use an old word.
I know when I was in school, I didn't even want to share the bathroom with the other boys.
Right?
I wanted my own bathroom.
It's bad enough. Yeah.
I wanted privacy. I wanted to, because that's a private thing. You're doing your business, and that should be you should be by yourself doing that.
Especially girls that are
So
more
I mean,
private.
yeah, that's just.
Yes.
I mean, it's also a
definitely
danger
more
because these
girls.
guys are taking advantage of it
Mhm.
and using it in all kinds of perverted ways.
And
So.
already
Yeah.
a girl in school got raped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a story.
Quite a few of them.
A story earlier this year where a boy, he wasn't transgender, but he wore a dress. He used a girl's bathroom. Went in and rape kit confirmed that he actually did rape this girl. I think they're early high school, late middle school, one of the two.
Mhm.
Either way, it's awful. Yes, the father doesn't find out from the school. He finds out from someone else, and then goes down to the school to protest. When he finds out, they arrest the father
Father, yeah, that was a shame.
and protected the boy in the dress
Hmm.
and put him back in class. And guess what happened?
You did it
He
again.
did it again.
It's not going to stop. We need to stand firm for what's right. We have to, and what's true. And like Sarah was saying, there are some things that are true, and you just can't change it, no matter what no matter what you want to think.
And the really important thing for me, and I think, and it should be important to everybody, is that as much as we want it to, government isn't going to fix it. It's got to
No.
start at the family level. It all goes back to
Agreed.
parents teaching their kids, training them up when they're young, preparing them for the world, knowing that even children are known by their doings, what's good and what's right.
Mm-hmm. And you
That's what it all comes down to. If you can get that done, if you can get your family, and then your family and friends, your community, your village that's helping you, and then let that spread, and that's how things change, how it gets done. It doesn't come from the top level. It's got to start at the bottom level.
Yeah, be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't remember where that quote, because I know that it's credit to somebody, but I don't want to miscredit. So, but I know that it's a famous quote, and it's very meaningful. Be the change you want to see.
And believe it or not, will not be the only one. You might feel like you're the only one, but I'm telling you right now, you are not the only one.
I see that as a sickness, to tell you the truth. They got to be sick in the mind, or something happened to them to make them sick in the mind. Because God didn't make that. God didn't make a man to go with a man and a woman to a man.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say a man could have sex with a man, and he said only a man and a woman to produce. How are you going to produce with another man, you know? Or two women, how are they going to produce with a kid?
The devil is the author of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good way of looking at that. You know, we talk about seeking the truth, right? Well, in a mayoral election, a judge overturned the evidence of mail ballot fraud. So they actually overturned an election. So coming from the Federalist, this is my
Your
secret article.
article.
Yes, my fourth secret article that no one actually got. So, judge overturns Bridgeport mayoral election due to evidence of mail ballot fraud. In Connecticut, Superior Court Judge William F. Clark has ordered that the results of the recent mayoral election, primary election in Bridgeport, the state's largest city, be overturned and a new election held.
Amen.
So it could be the start of something, right? Could be the start of something real big right here. This is a precedent.
Mm-hmm.
So remember this. Remember this episode. Remember this article. I'm definitely saving it on all my devices, and if I'm gonna print it out actually, so I have a hard copy because I want to remember this.
Good thinking.
Clark's decision affirmed that there was merit to accusations that Bridgeport's incumbent mayor Joe Ganim won his election as a result of significant fraud involving absentee ballots. Quote, the volume of evidence in this case, including the many hundreds of hours of video surveillance disclosed and accepted into evidence, is perhaps unprecedented in the state of Connecticut in an election case, observes Clark. After a primary election in September, challenger John Gomes, former chief administrator officer in the Bridgeport city government, was leading Ganim among votes that were cast in person. Ganim then predicted that the absentee ballots would break his way. And how would he know that? And he eventually won the absentee votes, 1,564 to 861, securing a victory in the primary by just 251 votes. After the election, Gomes released a video of what appears to be a city employee, Wanda Jeter Pataky, who is affiliated with Ganim's campaign, stuffing ballot boxes on August 30th, just over 2 weeks before September's primary election. Connecticut's State Elections Enforcement Commission recommended criminal charges. I'm not going to be able to say her name for the young lady that stuffed the ballot boxes, and 2 other people connected to Ganim's campaign related to mishandling of absentee ballots in Bridgeport's 2019 mayoral election. Ganim also won the election by just around 300 votes after the absentee ballots were counted. According to Clark's decision, that young lady asserted her privilege against self-incrimination 71 times when she was asked questions relating to her work for Ganim, whether she appeared on the video, and whether she took custody of absentee ballots that did not belong to her in September's election. She is presently on leave from her job as a city employee while she's being investigated by the city.
I really hope so.
Right? I chose this, and I was hoping that we'd have time. I prayed that we'd have time, and I think God provided that time tonight. But for reason, good reason. Like I said, this is precedent. Remember this case. This is the case that when they try, because they will, and we can talk about it now on YouTube about election fraud and election potential election.
Interference?
Yes, thank you. I was a little brain fart there.
What's the word? Okay.
Yes. Because they might try it again,
Oh, they will try it again.
and they might just use FDR to kind of subsidize out Trump votes, right? Because they know that Trump's going to probably win by a landslide. They know it. He's way too popular. He's way ahead of all the GOP candidates by at least 60 points, if not more.
And the more they put them down, the higher the numbers go up.
Yeah, the higher is exactly right. Louis said it perfectly. The more they try to take him out, the higher his numbers go up. Because we love a good outlaw story, really. I mean, he's not actually an outlaw, but Americans love, to champion the underdog. And right now, Trump is big time the underdog because he's got all the slings and arrows coming at him from every direction, and they're trying to take him out, and all these fake indictments and the boxes hoax and the Russia, and the phone calls, whether they be to Russia or to the Georgia governor. These are all things that they're trying to take him out with, and it's going to compile on top of what they're probably going to do. They're probably going to try to shut us down again. Right when election time comes around next year, probably not this year. We're just days away now, but when election time comes around next year, they're probably going to try to figure out a way to bring back some kind of version of the vid and lock everything down. And
actually, what they're doing is they're just not reversing those laws. We still have all the laws from COVID now, and mail-in ballot is still legal in a lot of states, and early voting, and all of those things that are very easy to corrupt. So unless we change them back, unless we become actively involved and say we want it back the way it was, they're just going to leave it. And being the way that we are, easily distracted, that's why we have to be vigilant on this. We have to be involved in this. I've learned more about elections in the past 4 years than I ever thought I ever wanted to know. I mean, and how they're run. And it's important that we are involved and not leave it to someone else.
That's right. It was almost good that it happened the way it did, honestly. I know that, yes, it stinks to have Biden in office. We all agree. But the positive look at that is now we're looking at all the little things that count, right? Before we didn't look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't even think about it. Like, when Trump won, they said, oh, he couldn't have won. He couldn't have won. All the Democrats say, well, he couldn't have won.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he didn't.
And they wouldn't announce it till the last minute either.
Right? Maybe he didn't. Maybe that, maybe even back then, maybe there were tampering. We don't know. But we need to find that out too. But we need to, and I'm big time, I support Trump.
Right.
But I want to know. I want to know all of that. A lot of this stuff has been brought to light because of the things that happened with Trump. He's been a vehicle for bringing a lot of people out to say, what is really going on? What is the government up to? They're not. They're supposed to be there to protect your rights. That's it. Believe it or not, that's all. That's the only function of government. Protect your rights, not fix your problems. Your problems are yours, and your community can help you out with that. We just had a message about it. Don't depend on the government. They're not there for that. They're there to protect your rights. That's it.
Your
You know what
God-given
I'm
rights.
afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
They might do to Trump what they did to Lincoln and Kennedy.
Yeah, I hope not. I know. Even
There's
during.
a lot of talks about it.
I think he's being supernaturally protected, but that's me.
I really hope so. I pray that he is protected.
I think a lot of people are praying.
Because there are six recorded attempts on his life as a candidate from 2015 to 2016 when he won. 6 recorded attempts on his life just in that short time.
And nobody even talks about it.
And I don't know how many are because the records, I can't get to the records, but I don't know how many attempts were probably on his life just during his presidency, and then now, because it's every angle, right? I mean, Chuck Schumer said the quiet part out loud when he was on CNN recently. He said, "We've got a million ways from Sunday to come after you." That's what he said.
And I would take him at his word.
As he knows how deep that corruption really goes.
He's part of it.
Oh yeah, all these stuff. What do you mean, Mitch McConnell? That's why he freezes up now.
Oh my goodness, he's broken.
Have you seen this, Sarah?
He's like a broken robot. It's really kind of sad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the man's got some kind of mental breakdown going on, but he's very, very, very elderly.
And he's been there way too long, like many of the people there.
Quite like Dianne Feinstein, who had to die to get out of the
out of office.
government. And I think it's probably what's going to happen with Mitch, too. I hope not. But he'll go to the podium, he'll start talking, and then he stops, and he just stares off his face. Like you thought Biden was bad, he just freezes. It's like he's been shot with a ray gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that I feel remorse for that, because there's so much evil in that heart. If God can forgive it. But watching that, I'm just like, you are part of the problem. You're not here to control us. You're not here to give us services. We don't need that from you. You're here to protect our rights. That's it. Where are we at on time?
An hour 41.
Okay, yeah, so we even went into OT. Yay! All of time. Right, Louis? Alan hates olives. Yeah,
All of time.
Alan hates olives, so we gotta go into all of time. So, we're gonna start wrapping things up. We got to get a closing prayer just before I do some outros. So, Sarah, would you mind leading us into a closing prayer?
Lord, thank you for this time. Just been looking at your word, looking what you have to say about our children, and those who aren't our children that we help to raise and send out. I pray that we are being diligent and using your wisdom to raise them in the best way possible. I pray for our nation as it is struggling for sure. God, we need you. Definitely. And I pray that us as a people will seek you, and then that can change the things that are higher up. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 That was our good friend, Sarah Metcalf Allen.
That's me.
Her husband's the perfect producer.
Really.
So that means even if you don't know, you gotta love her now. You gotta love her now, right?
I'm pretty lovable anyway.
Yes, this is true. This is true. And she's very good friends with my wife, so then you double down. Now you go. If Laura likes somebody, they gotta be pretty great. And next to her is the softer side of Faith Family Politics, Yvonne Metcalf.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us once again.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Great insights this week.
It was very interesting conversation, I think.
It's always a good time when we get a chance to, I've said this before, but get a chance to actually bring in more than one lady at a time, because this show does tend to be a boys club, and I would love to do a couple episodes where I get to sit in Ryan's seat and just let the ladies run it for a couple episodes. I would love to do that. So, Sarah, I'm looking at you. And then across from Yvonne is our good friend, the host of Rodriguez Rants, Louis Rodriguez.
Yay.
Where's the cheers?
For having me.
Yeah. He's getting better. He did it. He got it. Yay, Ryan. So we'll try to get another episode of that out this week. Be sure to be looking out for that. I've been your host, Joshua Cummins, reminding you, to stay in trouble. And we'll see you next week.